Okay, well, welcome everyone to this awesome panel discussion on how to build your brand in data science. The way things are going to work is that if you guys have any questions, feel free to send them to the chat because the idea here is for you to nurture, for you to get all this awesome experience from these two wonderful people, both from Kate and both from Ken, in order to help you understand what is the basis or what is the foundations of how to build your brand in data science. But before we start off with the questions, let's go for a little quick round of introductions. Kate, how about you get started?
Sure, happy to. Thank you, Roberto. Hi, everybody. This is Kate Strasny, founder of Story by Data and also the Dedicated Academy and more recently the Dedicated Conference. So I've got a lot going on, especially the next couple of days. So a little bit about me. I'm very focused on the data visualization side of things. So I'd say from a brand perspective, I probably spend most of my time talking about things like data visualization and how that fits into the grand scheme of data science and analytics. I started my career in risk management and regulatory compliance and then moved into data analytics about 6 years ago. And yeah, now I'm just doing a lot of stuff in the data community. And most importantly, my next big thing is the Dedicated Conference coming up in 2 days. But very happy to be here. Welcome any and all questions on building a brand in the data space.
Oh, awesome. And welcome, Kate. Next up, Ken, how about a little bit of something about yourself?
Sure. First, thank you guys so much for having me. I think everyone on the team at DSGO is doing such incredible stuff. A little bit about me. I'm the head of data science at a company called Scouts Consulting Group. So we help athletes and teams improve their performance by evaluating the data that's collected on them. So our niche is very specifically in sports analytics. I'm probably better known for my YouTube channel. I'm I believe sometime next month, I'll probably eclipse the 100,000 subscriber mark, which is incredible that many people would actually tune in to listen to me speak on anything. But I've also recently launched a podcast that we're in the process of naming. Kate has been a guest on it. So if you want to hear more from either of us, if we haven't kind of worn you out by the end of this, definitely go check that out. And on a branding front, one of my initiatives more recently has been called the 66 Days of Data. It's a hashtag on Twitter. That's something that I've really started to build a community around. We have over 2,000 people in the Discord server, and I can also talk a little bit more about that later. I'm sure something related to that idea will definitely come up, and we can expand upon that and kind of what that means, because it really is all tied together. Whether it's myself, whether it's the things that we create, whether it's organizations, they all touch our brand in various different ways, and the different platforms around whatever that might be are all very unique and have their own idiosyncrasies. So again, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to be on the panel with Kate.
And well, we are super excited to have you both here. We have questions already rolling in. So we have now, first of all, are you guys ready for your questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very ready.
Well, let's get started. We have a question coming in from Manan. Manan asks, tips for mid-career professional about managing time when focusing on both your skills and personal branding.
Yeah, Ken, you want to start? Since I
Sure,
started before? Yeah.
I would love to. So one of my biggest things, because I'm in the content creation space, is to never make, one piece of content just work for itself. So you want to have one piece of content do multiple things. So let's take a podcast, for example. If I record a podcast, I can clip that up and make it into a bunch of different Twitter videos, LinkedIn videos. I can also clip it up and put it on YouTube. I can take the script of the podcast and make that into a blog post. And if we relate that to data science, I can make a project that I do for work, for example. I can, as long as it's okay with the company, I can turn that into a blog post, or I can turn that into something that I share with the community, or I can take the lessons that I've learned out of that and make that into some sort of engagement on Twitter or another platform. So if you're struggling for time, I would think about how you can get economies of scope from the things that you're working on. So I hope that helps answer the question. I'd love to get Kate's thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that whole repurposing your content, because I think that's so important to use that content over and over again. You can also create blog posts and, like you said, shorter videos from your long form videos. I think in addition to that, and this is something Gary Vaynerchuk always says, if you are not familiar with Gary Vee, go check him out. He's like a marketing genius. But basically, instead of creating content, which I think is kind of a hurdle for a lot of people, where they're like, I don't know what to create content about, he always talks about recording your process. And that really motivated me, because you're going to do the thing, whatever that thing is for you anyways. Let's say data science project, or prepping for an interview, and you can record that process either with a short video or make a blog post about it. So you don't have to actually come up with content, and that'll also save you time. It's also fun to look back at your content that you created, let's say years ago. You're like, oh man, what was I thinking way back then? You can actually see yourself 6 years ago. It's pretty cool. So definitely I encourage you to record the process versus trying to come up with what do you think the community wants in terms of content and stuff like that.
Okay, wonderful. And oh, it was very excited to receive the answer, and I was very excited. We have also now a question coming in from Elka. The question is, what are your thoughts on mixing personal content, such as data science projects and articles, with professional content on the same platform, such as LinkedIn?
Yeah, Oh, thanks. Yeah, I actually do mix a lot of personal content into my professional content. And I feel like it actually helps my community, my audience, get to know me a little bit more. I do keep a balance. So probably 90% of my content will be in the data analytics space and keep it professional. But then sometimes I'll write a post about maybe something my kids said, or I don't put cat videos out there or anything, but I do talk about my running, so people get to know me on a little bit more of a personal level, and people start to feel like they actually know you, versus when you're keeping it all very, very professional, it's hard to get to know the person behind the scenes. What do you think, Ken?
I'm in the same boat. I think you should always be combining your work with things that are exciting to you. Let's take a data science project, for example. I love seeing projects that people are extremely passionate about. If it touches their own life, they're going to be a lot more interested in putting more motivation and effort into it. Other people are also going to read into that. For example, I do some project reviews on my YouTube channel, and someone sent in a project where they reviewed their own Spotify data, and they wanted to understand their own trends and see if they could predict songs that they would like from the corpus of Spotify songs. And to me, that's fascinating. They thought about the end user, who is themselves, and they built something around that. I also think that your brand is a lot stronger, and you can't take away your personality. You can't take away the idea of who you are, or the little personal life things that you have. And that makes your brand so much stronger, because someone else can say the exact same thing that I say in a video, right? They can say the exact same content. But if it's not coming from me, if people have my backstory, if they genuinely like me, which, a lot of people might, a lot of people probably don't, but that's okay. But the idea is that if the message is coming from me, that makes it unique to me. That means that no one else can replicate it, even if they're saying the exact same thing. And I think that that's really important as it comes to brand. I mean, Elon Musk could tweet something versus me tweeting something, and people would probably interpret it differently. It would have so much more momentum. It would gain so much more traction just because it's out of his mouth. And it's important to consider that. And it's not just we know Elon Musk from Tesla, but we know about his personal life, whatever that might be. In addition to that, I will say you do want to draw the line. If there are a lot of people following you on the internet, I think there are some things that probably should be kept private. That's something that you personally have to decide rather than the audience deciding for you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome answers. Now we have another question coming in, this time from Josh. Josh asks, what are the primary benefits of having a good personal brand in a data science context? Kate, why don't you take this one first?
Yeah, I think the number of opportunities that have come my way just because I have a brand. I think for the most part, it's just on LinkedIn. Like Ken's big on YouTube. I have most of my followers are on LinkedIn. And I mean, the opportunities to, for example, speak at DSGO, right? Or speak at different conferences, go and teach at different schools. And I mean, the number of opportunities is just endless. Like I always get contacted to do consulting gigs and contracts and, hey, do you want to write a book? And it's all because I talk about data nonstop on social media. And I think the power of that in any field really, is when people see you talking about whatever it might be. You could be talking about pink elephants, right? It doesn't really matter. People are going to associate you with a thing that you talk about all the time, even if they don't really understand data. Like I've got people in my family, like in different countries, who don't really understand data at all. But they message me that they're like, I see you're always talking about this thing and you're doing such a great job. And like if they needed any person to do anything with data or tech, they call me because they don't even know what I do, but they know they can associate those two. And I think it's extremely powerful because in the data science space, for example, it can lead you to opportunities to speak, but more importantly, it can get you job opportunities, right? If somebody's looking for a person on their team and you've been putting out authentic content that shows people who you are as a person, it's a lot easier for them to bring you on because they feel like they already know you. And especially if you're looking for a job, you know, you put yourself out there and say, hey guys, I'm looking for a gig. Chances are you'll get contacted if people know of you and they know what you're good at. It's a lot easier for them to know, like to recommend you to another corporation, or if they know they have an opening, it just makes your life a lot easier.
Wonderful, wonderful. What are your thoughts on that? Okay.
Well, first, I love what Kate said, and I'm probably going to echo quite a bit of that. The first thing that I think is really important is looking at this like a metaphor. So I look at branding as like you're your own kind of planet. I know this is going to sound a little out there to begin with, but the concept that's important here is gravity. So as your brand grows, you accumulate this mass, and the bigger you are, the more strength you have to pull things towards you. So rather than going out and reaching for all these opportunities, there's a certain tipping point where you get big enough where they start coming to you. Yeah. And any opportunity, whether it's a contract, whether it's a job, whether it's just like people you're interested in meeting and talking to, once you reach this critical mass, any of these things that are coming to you are a lot more likely to convert. They're people or organizations, whatever it is, they're just already interested in talking to you. You don't really have to do any selling. You don't have to sell yourself. People know you and they already have this association with you. There's also another thing that's really important in all of data science, the job process, whatever that might be, and it's this idea of POW. And it's not prisoner of war, it's proof of work. So if I can show that I've done something substantial in my past, whether it's just documenting my progress, I can show how far I've come in a year. And that might be really impressive to someone. They might want to interview you. They might want to say, hey, we think you'd be a good fit for our team because, oh my goodness, you've grown so much. You've been able to go from point A to point B, and that's absolutely incredible. So I think what's again, Kate already has said quite a bit of this, is that if you do create this brand, you flip the script. You don't have to go ask. You don't have to go reach out. And if you do, you're going to be a lot more successful with it because people have seen your track record. So I hope that wasn't too discombobulated, but too long didn't read is gravity brings opportunities to you rather than you necessarily having to really go out and hunt for them.
Actually, people really enjoyed that metaphor, and it's a great way of understanding just how powerful sending out a message and the way that can attract future opportunities. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful way of seeing things. Now, we have another question coming in. Ken, why don't you take the lead in this one? How do you overcome the fear of inconsistency?
So this is a great opportunity to bring up my 66 Days of Data initiative. So one of the biggest things is with the fear of consistency is just starting really small. So there's a couple books that I love. One's called The Power of Habit, and one is called Tiny Habits. And the idea is that you take anything that you want to do and you break it down into the smallest possible kernel, right? So let's say I want to start getting in shape. If I do a single push-up every day, that creates the habit of me working out. It starts getting the flow of things going. And who goes down on the floor and does one push-up? Once you're already there, you're probably going to do at least 2 or 3, maybe 5, maybe even 10 if you're feeling really motivated. And if you're doing just one a day and you're holding yourself to that standard, it becomes normal to you. It becomes a habit. You get used to it. It becomes part of your lifestyle. The same thing is with consistency of posting or putting stuff out there. Is you can start really small. Just let's say maybe you tweet every day. A tweet takes, in theory, only a couple minutes to put together and you get it out there. And with the 66 days of data, that's basically what it is that we want to create really good habits around data science and sharing our work. So the first requirement is every day you have to do a minimum of 5 minutes at least of studying data science. And that is a pretty low threshold. You can watch one of my videos that's 5 minutes, and I would count that. The next thing is you just have to share via Twitter, via the Discord, via LinkedIn, what you did for that day or what you're planning to do for that day. And that creates 2 habits in one. You're working on data science and you're sharing your work. And if you're just kind of going through that process, you're doing it every day for 66 days, and 66 days is the average amount of time it takes to ingrain a habit. It'll be like, brushing your teeth every morning at that point in time. It'll be like breathing. It'll be as easy as just going out and doing it. It's part of who you are, no longer something that you have to overcome the fear of doing.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's a wonderful idea, actually, that brought to mind while reading those books from Charles Duhigg and from James Clear. The power that latching one habit onto another has. So by ending one habit and using the reward from that habit as a cue to start another habit, that is, I think, one of the most powerful things out there. And breaking it down, as you said, into very small atomic habits, as they will put it, is incredibly powerful. I mean, having that 1% increase every day, just doing 1% or improving yourself 1%, which again can be just one push-up, every day just starts growing into something beautiful.
Well, there's also the other side of that, is that if you look back after doing this, you can see how far you've personally come. And that's something that I think is also really important, is if we're just doing something and it's going into a black hole and we don't see the results of the fruits of our labor, we're probably going to stop. With this, you have a documentation of the last 66 days, everything you've done. And that can get to this question as well, as how do you overcome that fear? Is, well, look at the track record you've built. Look at how far you've come. What's another step?
I love that, Ken. I think the only thing I'd add to this, because you've basically said it all, right? The consistency, the habits, the attaching one habit to another habit, they're all amazing tips. I think having an accountability buddy, or in this case, everyone else who's doing that 66 days of data challenge, can really help push you, because you see somebody else post their hashtag 66 days of data and you're like, oh man, okay, I got to do mine because these people know I'm doing it too. And if I miss a day, it's kind of, you become more accountable. So, but I love that, Ken. I think that challenge is really helping. I actually see a lot of that in my Twitter feed. So.
Great.
And awesome. Also, do you have any tips you'd like to share to the audience, Kate, about how to overcome that fear of inconsistency?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people have a fear of inconsistency because they worry they're not going to know what to post. And I think it's combined with that fear of, well, I know what to post for the next 3 days, but what do I do then, right? Or I'm going to run out of things to say. And I think that goes back to documenting your process, because as long as you're working on things or you're learning things, you're going to have things that you can share, at least share your perspective on, right? I think another fear people might have is, well, people have talked about this algorithm, so many times. What do I know? What can I add to that conversation? And then I always remind them that they have their own perspective. Like maybe they're working in a specific industry, or maybe they're very new to the field and they have a different perspective because they're just learning it. So I think overcoming that fear of inconsistency, just get started, do it, attach it to another habit, get accountability buddies, and also just document your process so you don't have to think about what am I going to post tomorrow. Makes it easy.
Awesome. And that is true. Having accountability buddies, as you mentioned it, is fundamental. Having someone by your side to remind you, hey, don't forget to do this, or hey, I'm doing this, you should do.
Yeah.
That is very powerful. Now, we have another question coming in for both of you. Lucas asks, as someone who would like to participate more in the community, what type of content do you think is most overlooked by most content creators in the data science community?
Lucas, I think there's so much content of all types. I don't think that we're necessarily missing anything, but I think it's always interesting to hear, like I mentioned, different perspectives of whatever it is that you're working on. I mean, a couple of my favorite types of content is things like this, like a panel discussion or interviews, or even if you attend a conference, jotting down some notes of what you've learned, of what you've taken away from that. You can share that as well. I have the opposite problem where I have about 50 things I want to post per day, and I kind of have to scale back, like, okay, what am I not posting today? So if you want to post some of my content, Lucas, reach out to me. I'll give you more than you need. So what do you think, Ken? What's missing?
I love that. I when I was starting out, I would think, oh my goodness, how can I make a video every week or every 2 a week, 3 a week, whatever it might be. And I found that the more I make videos, the more ideas come to me about what to create. And people start recommending things. Hey, I would love to see this. And now I have a list of 100 things that I probably will never make. It's so long at this point that I'm way ahead of pace. But back to what type of content I think if I was to approach this field, I would create. I love content that tells a story, where you're documenting your learning process, and that's something that every single person can do. You don't have to be an expert to create content. I am by no means an expert, right? There's stuff that I learn every day, and I hope it comes through in my videos that, this is my opinion. These are the things that I've learned from my experiences. And if you're a student in college, you can make that type of content because that's helpful to someone at some point who's maybe just even a month behind you where you are. You should be learning from people that are only a little bit in front of you. I mean, me being 5 years in front of someone in terms of my career development, they're probably not going to be, I'm not going to be able to relate to them as well as someone who's a year out, 5 months out, 6 months out. I think that whole idea of showing your journey is what really is the most popular on YouTube, for example. You look at almost every famous YouTuber. I don't want to say that, like, for example, let's take Logan Paul, right? They're out there just documenting their life. They're showing you what they're doing, the stupid mistakes they made, which usually tends to be a lot of them. But that's interesting to people, is just seeing the journey and telling that story and making it interesting and getting to know you.
Wow, awesome answers. Now we have another question coming in, this time from Miguel. Miguel asks, can you guys recommend a few data science events or conferences that are coming up?
Wait, hold your horses. I've got a great recommendation for you, Miguel. Thank you for that question. It's almost as if it was planted on purpose. Yes, the Dedicated Conference, first ever LinkedIn Live conference coming up in 2 days. It's free to attend, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is Eastern time. We've got 16 speakers in a session of 4 hours talking about a lot of amazing things. So definitely check that out. Anyone who's listening, check that out. We have almost over 5,700 people signed up so far, and I'm really hoping to. I was hoping to get 10,000 people signed up, but now with 2 days left, I'm slowly giving up hope, but not completely. But also the ODSC is coming up, so I don't know, Ken, if you want to mention other conferences.
Nope, I seconded Dedicated. I will be in attendance.
Thank you.
Okay. So now you guys know. Now we have a question coming in, this time from Sebron. Question is, how do you overcome imposter syndrome when publishing content?
I actually just released a video on this, so definitely check out my YouTube channel for that. The biggest thing is that, for me, imposter syndrome never goes away. I had it when I was in high school, when I was in college, when I was getting my master's degree in computer science, when I started work. Every single video I make, there is doubt associated with that. And at least for me, maybe some other people have a different experience, that feeling legitimately never goes away. But you can take that feeling and make it into something very, very powerful. You can take those feelings of doubt and say, hey, I want to do a little bit more studying today, so I can ease that feeling a little bit more. I also want to to make some additional edits, really clean this video up so that everyone who's watching gets just a little bit more impact, and maybe they think I'm less of a fake if I do this. There is something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and Dunning-Kruger is when someone who is not that smart or not that well educated in an area, they overestimate their confidence when talking about it. Let's say I don't know much about baseball. I'm a sideline fan, and I'm critiquing what everything is happening on the TV. Oh, why'd they do that when I couldn't have done that, right? The I guess contra positive of that is that if you are doubting your abilities, even though you're really engrossed in the field, you're probably more qualified than you think, right? It's the opposite of that effect. So, again, I don't think it'll go away, but use it, harness it, make it turn into better content for you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. What about you, Kate? What do you think is the best way, or how would you overcome that imposter syndrome when publishing content?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ken, I love your harness that imposter syndrome and kind of get back to studying and all that. For me, I did have a bit of imposter syndrome starting out when I was publishing content, because there, in the data community, people are just so amazing, and they would say things like, "Oh, look, go check out Kate. She's like the best data scientist." I'm like, I'm a data scientist? What? That put so much pressure on me. And I think what helped me overcome imposter syndrome, and I do know it's going to be with us forever to an extent, but to in a large way, I did overcome it by being very, very, very open with what I know and what I don't know, right? So I was very open in any interviews or conversations or posts saying, "Hey guys, I'm just learning how to program with R," right? I wouldn't come out there and say, "Hey, look, this is the new and cool way to write this code." And I think just being very authentic and very open with your community, not being afraid to say that you truly have no clue about a specific topic, and that you're documenting what you're learning, is going to help you overcome that, because you're no longer looked at as the holy grail master of the topic. You're just kind of in the same boat, but you're just sharing what you're learning. That's definitely helped me, just being very open with what I know.
And I would like to piggyback on that. I think something Kate does unbelievably well is, if she doesn't know as much about an area, she'll always bring someone in who does know a lot about that area, who is very knowledgeable in a space. And I'm hoping to emulate that in any of the interviews or whatever that is that I do. That's something where you can create content by talking to other people, and a lot of people don't necessarily realize that.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that, Ken. I mean, I've had conversations about programming self-driving cars and AI and all this stuff, and I'm like, I love to bring people on the show, or sports analytics, right? Ken, you were on my show, and I'm like, I know nothing about sports analytics, but you do, and I'm curious and I want to learn, and I think that makes great content, because I truly don't know, and I'm asking questions I care about hearing the answers about. Yeah. So yeah, interviewing others is another great way to put out content when you're not as comfortable on those topics.
It's fun to learn with the viewer, right? Yeah. That's been fascinating for me when I interview anyone as well.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for those in-depth answers. Now we have another question, this time from Ken. Ken asks, can you suggest some strategies to explain data science concepts in a way that helps build trust in the output with people outside the world of data science?
I can start with this one if you want. Okay. My biggest thing is telling stories, whether it's your own story through content, through brand, whatever it is, whether it's the story of your data science project. People want to know what the results are. People want to understand how this impacts their lives or someone else's lives. So I usually start with any data science concept or data science project that I've done with the end first. And in business, it's this concept called the bluff, which is the bottom line up front. So I'll say, hey, this helped, I don't know what it is. We prevented, 25,000 possible cases of coronavirus by making this decision, or by following these guidelines based on this model. That is something that's understandable to almost anyone, regardless of how much data science knowledge they use. And you leave a kind of door there where it's like, if you're interested in data science, we can open that door and you can go down that path and learn how we did it and the methodology that we used. But if you're not necessarily in that, you can still share that. You can still share this information. You can still put it out there. You can still talk about it semi-intelligently because we've made it accessible to everyone. And that's something, admittedly, I haven't been as good about with my own content. That's something in future videos, I'm really trying to make the projects I do a lot more accessible to everyone. And I would hope other people can learn from, not my mistakes, but what I've done in the past so far.
Yeah, Ken, the one thing I'd add is don't try to explain to them what a p-value is. Like, you're gonna lose people. I mean, I echo everything you just said, right? Just keep it to the business impact and have the actual data science-y stuff in your back pocket for those who can understand it and can relate to it, but keep it as relevant to the actual business and the impact as possible.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, carrying on a little bit with a beginner's standpoint, the beginner's point of view. Joel has a question for you guys. Joel asks, for someone that is interested in learning more about machine learning and AI and a little overwhelmed with the number of options, would you have a recommendation for a starting point?
I mean, if I kick this one off, Ken, I think starting with what interests you, like for Ken, it's very obvious. He loves sports, right? So he's like living the dream life there where he's using data science to, I don't know what you do. I still don't know what you do with your sports data. I mean, I kind of get it more now, but
I science it.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it helped by taking data for my running app and analyzing that and visualizing that and trying to tell stories with that data, because that data excited me. I wanted to see what the output's going to look like. I wanted to plot this as soon as I would run. I would want to, run and make the charts. But I think you mentioned that there's so many options out there, and that could be daunting. That can be scary because you don't know where to start. I know a lot of people go to things like Kaggle where they have those practice problems and practice data sets that you can work with. But I think truly finding a data set that you're passionate about, even if it's like your local library that can give you some data about, number of books that are being loaned out. Well, probably none at the moment because of COVID, but things like that where you can go to your local police department and stuff like that where you can relate to the data that you might be passionate about. I think that's always a good place to start, and it'll also set you apart from everybody else because people don't really have that creativity or take that time to go get their own data set or collect their own data set. They typically go to the Kaggles and get the Titanic or whatever everybody starts with, which, nothing against Kaggle. I think it's a great platform for people to start learning. But yeah, starting with what you're really passionate about is my advice.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think there are two things I'd like to add. So the first is that there's a lot of incredible teaching content out there. I think Super Data Science has some really good stuff. I've done a couple courses with 365 Data Science. Kaggle is incredible. It's, in my opinion, one of the best free resources. There's DataCamp, DataQuest, wherever it is. All these are really good. They're all incredible platforms. Just choose one. That's the hardest thing, is just pick one, watch a couple intros and be like, this is what I'm doing until I finish it. And then you can go learn the other ones. People don't realize that learning is additive. Just because you take one course doesn't mean you can't take another one. And so it's like, you shouldn't have to think about the opportunity cost because you can take another one later. You probably should take another one later to reinforce these concepts. The other thing is that, this is, again, a lot along the lines of what Kate said, is you should be starting with the problem that you want to solve. When you start with a problem, you narrow the feature space of all the things you have to learn. Let's say I wanted to improve predict if a professional golfer would win an event, right? From that problem, I know I'm looking at classification, win, lose, right? I don't have to worry about any of the regression or clustering types of algorithms after I make that first initial decision, right? Then I say, what type of data do I want to use? Okay, I'm going to use their previous scoring data. I've narrowed all of the possible data out there to this specific golf data set. And the decisions that I can make then on are a lot more limited and a lot more targeted. So I took the whole space of data science, and each layer I add to this problem, the smaller and smaller it gets, so that I can focus on a very uniform, specific thing that does have an outcome. Data science learning, there is no end goal, right? You don't reach some supreme level of knowledge. You like continue to learn every day, no matter what. It's part of the job. If you do have these problems, you have checkpoints where you can say, I am comfortable with these concepts enough to have finished this project and to have shared it. You don't have to worry about saying, oh, I have mastery of this thing, because it'll never happen. You build that, again, track record, proof of work, by knocking these things off, and you show yourself that you can do it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Now we have a question coming in from John. John asks, should I focus on being more successful and skilled and then starting to build my personal brand?
It's a hard no for me.
Resounding no.
Yep.
It's a resounding no. Yeah, I mean, you want to go, Ken?
No, all you.
Okay, yeah, no, I wouldn't say you need to wait for, you can start today, right? Start right this second, right after you're done with DSGO, obviously. I think there's no need to wait because, stuff that Ken touched on as well, people need other people to look up to, depending on where they are. So if you're just starting out, and let's paint a picture, you're in college or graduating college or something, and you're in data science, you're learning, you can talk about your experience, you can talk about your class, you could talk about your project, your final, your presentation, whatever it is you've got going on, the biggest mistake you made, right? People love that kind of content because they can relate to it. Everyone else who's either currently in school or thinking about getting into college to learn data science, they can follow your journey and they can really be motivated by the kind of things that you can share. Because, I'll relate this to running maybe. For example, if I'm just starting out as a runner, I'd be more inspired by somebody else who started a month before me and is now running, 10 miles at a very fast pace, versus looking at some guy, somebody who's been running for their whole life, or they're really like way ahead of me that I don't even think that's attainable. And I'd like to follow the journey of the person who is kind of closest to me, but a little bit ahead maybe, or even if they're a little bit behind, I'll still be inspired and more curious about their journey than the person who ran a marathon in 4 hours, which I always forget his name when I give this reference. But yeah, that's my point there. What do you think, Ken? Should people wait?
Absolutely not. And so my thought is, how do you make sharing as not intimidating as possible? And it doesn't have to be your work or your story that you're sharing. On Twitter, you can retweet someone, or you can retweet with a comment, and you can say, this resource really helped me. I get really excited when someone shares a video of mine and say, oh, this answered a question I had about starting with GitHub or something along those lines. You're providing value for other people. You're building your brand by sharing the things that you found really useful. I mean, to me, that's just as useful as sharing your own experience in long form. I mean, that's probably an easier starter. And there are plenty of people on Twitter, on LinkedIn, whatever it is, they grow this following, they build their brand just by sharing the things that they have found useful themselves personally. So my advice would be, look, just start simple. Start sharing other people's work. Start commenting on a post or a video if you liked what you saw, and let other people know that you appreciate their work. That's how collaboration starts. That's how you build momentum with these things. It doesn't have to be you start tweeting every day necessarily. I mean, I would like that associated with my initiatives. But there's very low barrier habits or whatever it is that you can use to get into this and build that momentum before you maybe make your first authentic post sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, Ken, just one quick thing to whoever asked this question. If I were waiting for the right time to start, I'd still be waiting, just FYI. I'd still think I'm not quite there where I'm an expert in anything that I can, start posting amazing content about. So just start where you are and go from there.
Yeah, and I will say experts are out of touch, right? I mean, like there are some PhDs, whatever it might be. A lot of them are very down to earth, but there's some people that are speaking on a different wavelength than you. And if you're not at that level, why would you want to even follow their content if you felt like you couldn't understand it all the time, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome advice. Now we have another question coming in. This time from Gabriela. She asks, "How do I build a personal brand alongside a business?" So, Kate, you want to
Kate's the
start?
master of this, so.
I mean, how can you not? Is my answer. I think if you're building a business, you're also, in my mind, you're also building a brand. At least for me, because when I launched my businesses, I launched them very publicly. So even the design of my logo, I would post it online and say, "Hey guys, what do you think? This color for, or this font or this font. What do you think I should go with?" So I took the community along the journey with me on most steps of the business. Obviously, in the end, you're still making all the decisions for your business, but I think having that transparency and taking people along for the ride really makes them feel a lot more connected to you and your business. So I think, again, goes back to documenting your journey. Like right now for my dedicated conference, every single day I post about how many registrations we have now. Did we get a new sponsor? Who's the new speaker, right? And I make this as transparent as possible, because then people feel like they're kind of building this thing with you and they feel like they're in it for the ride. So if you're building a business, absolutely talk about it as much as you can, and that will help you build the brand with the business.
I think that we inherently trust people more than we trust organizations and corporations, and it's really important to have your own touch on these things. I love what Kate said about bringing her people along, or her subscribers, or her communities along, right? And I think that that's so powerful, and something I've tried to emulate in the podcast I just created is that I'm crowdsourcing the name, right? People have buy-in, people are a part of it as they go. And to me, that's an incredible thing to share. I would love to bring all of my friends along and have them be a part of this thing that I'm doing. And I feel like that, Kate, with what you're doing, I feel like I'm a part of your process, right? It's an incredible feeling. And to be a part of these communities, be associated with these things, is something you should you hope to create, but also something that really does pay dividends in the long run. Is that, if someone is tightly associated with my work, if they're tightly associated with my brand, I'm a lot more inclined to help them out if they need something, or even offer anything around that. There's just such power in the branding when you're a hybrid of, human corporation type of thing there.
Yeah, I'll just add one quick thing here. So Ken, it wasn't even intentional for me to do this. It wasn't like a plan. Ooh, I'm taking them on a journey. No, for me, it's just so lonely being an entrepreneur by yourself that I'm like, let's just involve as many people as possible so it doesn't feel that lonely anymore. And the data community has just been so amazing. So yeah, it's been great. Yeah,
We're blessed with one of the best communities. I think it's unbelievable.
I agree.
That's true. That's true. Now we have another question. This time coming in from Andrew. Andrew's asking, "What are some personal branding pitfalls, if any, that I should be aware of?"
You know, I had one thing I wanted to share with people in terms of pitfalls. So I think when people get into sharing content, we're humans and we like to see engagement, right? For example, we like the number of likes and subscribers and all comments to go up. And I think we fall into a place where we start sharing content for the likes, right? That cue the adorable puppy video that has nothing to do with whatever it is you want to be associated with your brand. And I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls, because we get into posting something that we think is going to get us a lot of engagement. But then one thing I always recommend is keep in mind what it is you're trying to get out of this whole experience, right? If you're trying to educate your community on data science and analytics, and if you're trying to be known as that data person, stick mostly to that data topic, right? Don't go out there just for the likes, for the shares and the comments. Go out there for the real engagement, the real interaction, and always keep that purpose and focus in your mind.
I agree. My thought is that you you should be making your content for you with user input, right? You're in control of what goes out there, but it's nice to be able to give your audience things that they'd be interested in seeing. I mean, I personally battle with this every week. Is I know that project type videos do really well for my audience, do really well for my channel. And I plan to make quite a few more of those, but between my real job and content and podcast, whatever it is, I have to make some sacrifices in making that type of content because it just takes so much longer to make. I have to do the whole analysis, I have to record it, and then I have to put it out there. So, right now I'm making content that I think can be helpful. It doesn't take me quite as long, but I know that in the short term, that's what I can provide in the best possible way. In the long term, yes, I'm going to be making a lot more project-related videos, a lot more casual videos, but I have to know myself, and I have to hope that my audience is accepting enough to say, hey, like we're going to be respectful of Ken's time, whatever it is, because he will produce a lot of good stuff in the future.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, a question coming in from Chaitanya. Question is, what would you do if there's something wrong or a mistake in your content and you realize it later after it gets published?
So I think it's extremely important to be accountable for any of the mistakes that you might make, especially if a lot of people are seeing them. I think that it's natural and normal if you're producing a lot of content to have mistakes. Like, mistakes happen, it's a human thing. I've maybe 165, 170 videos on YouTube. There's no doubt in my mind that I've made some mistakes somewhere in there. And if the mistake is bad enough that it provides misinformation, you can take that content down, apologize for it, correct it, and you're welcome to put it back out there. But it's important to remember that we're human. We do make mistakes. If you have a misspelling in a tweet, I don't think anyone's really going to think too much less of you. And it also depends on the platform. So, for example, on LinkedIn, you can edit things. Twitter, you cannot. YouTube, you cannot edit your videos. So, it's a lot more common on YouTube to see things that stay up with errors in them, because in the description or in the comments, you can point them out. But again, my biggest stress is to say, be open when you make a mistake, let people know, be the first to act on that. And in any of those scenarios where I have messed up, they've all been, in my opinion, resolved very well, because I accepted that, I am human. I'm happy to take blame. It's part of the process, right? And nobody cares as much about your work as you care about your work. Like, you're always your toughest critic. No one's going to care. It's like, oh, Ken misbuttoned his shirt today. No one's looking at that. They're thinking about if they misbuttoned their own shirt, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Ken, that the whole point about accountability, completely agree with that. I think the only thing left to add is, if you've got a typo in your post, chances are you're going to get a lot more engagement on that post, because you're going to get people saying, look, you misspelled your own name, or whatever it is. Like, sometimes it can work in your favor. I actually wanted to run an experiment on LinkedIn with misspelling something, and then at the bottom, saying I did this on purpose. Let me know if you noticed.
Because out of the bag.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. There's so many people on LinkedIn. We can still try this. But I think, just like you said, owning your mistake. And it also depends on what kind of mistake it is, right? Did you really mislead people? Obviously not intentionally if it's a mistake, right? In that case, definitely announce it and let people know that here's the new content. I've updated it to reflect reality. But if it's something silly like Ken's shirt, I think just ignore it, because people truly don't care as much as you care.
Okay, great. Now, one other question coming in, this time from Charlene. The question is, what are some near-term or long-term opportunities or mediums that you are most excited about to test out or to play with, such as LinkedIn Stories?
So I've got LinkedIn Stories. I love to experiment on social media. I used to have TikTok. So I had TikTok for about 3 months. I closed it in June, maybe 2 months, because I just didn't see enough value, and I was consuming a lot more content than producing, because TikTok is so much fun, unfortunately. I would just keep sitting there and scrolling. I'm like, oh my God, why am I looking at this really, really stupid stuff? But it was entertaining. So I think I am trying out LinkedIn Stories. I feel like they don't get as much engagement as others. Just got back on Instagram actually because I closed Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok when I made that whole shift in June. But I got back on Instagram at Dedicated if you want to check me out there. Definitely getting back into it. I know they got Reels, so that's kind of like a TikTok for Instagram. I'm going to start checking that out to see if it's as crazy as TikTok. Let's find out. But other than that, I don't see anything really new coming out. At least on LinkedIn, my favorite feature is the LinkedIn Live. That's what I use the most, I think. What about you, Ken?
So, I'm a believer that you should focus on cultivating an audience, creating a platform in one of these things at a time. Like you want to reach a critical mass in one where you can have that audience bleed over into another one. So I started on YouTube. I've accumulated, a reasonable following there. And from there, that can bleed over into LinkedIn or to Twitter. But I really believe that it's fairly important to be able to consolidate your message. And for me personally, if I'm on 4 or 5 different apps, I get nothing done, right? I have to have my main thing be the main thing. And so I think that there's opportunities to explore. I would personally need a bigger team to really get involved with being engaged and active on all these different platforms. But for me, I also think LinkedIn is one of the best places to produce content, one of the best places to engage, because it is that professional setting. People have their names attached to things. People, especially in our line of content where it's data science related, it's the right fit for the market. If you're looking to get a job, if you're looking for opportunities, if you're doing this so that you really develop that professional brand. If you want to have something more lifestyle, I think that my stuff is a little bit more down that road. YouTube or Twitter or any of these other places are incredible for that. So my thought is think about what you want. Think about your strengths. I mean, I like talking on video. Not a lot of people do. That's totally okay. But think about who you are, what you like, and maybe you want to push yourself and become a better speaker. I mean, I obviously like to ramble, go down rabbit holes, and talk for a while. So one of the reasons I made YouTube is to try and make things a little more concise. You guys can evaluate if that's been the case or not. But that's my biggest message: is match yourself and the brand you would like to create to the platform.
Great. Well, following on that line of thought, Charlene asked the second question. What do you think is on the horizon for personal branding opportunities?
In terms of a platform, is that the question?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd say LinkedIn is probably my number one place where I live content-wise, but for me personally, I'm actually doubling down on 2 others, YouTube and Medium. And the reason for that is YouTube and Medium are like evergreen content, right? People don't really look at your LinkedIn post a day from now. If I posted something today, by tomorrow, nobody cares. LinkedIn doesn't care. The audience doesn't care. No one's going to look at your content from yesterday. But for Medium and YouTube, I still have content that's, 5-6 years old, I think, on YouTube that's still doing really, really well in terms of getting views and getting engagement. And people still search for things. So it's more searchable than LinkedIn. So for me, YouTube and Medium, I think, are really good in terms of building your brand, aside from my number one, which is LinkedIn.
I love that. And I would add that GitHub, especially in our line of work, is an incredible place to build a brand as well. I mean, there are some people who have, thousands of forks, thousands of stars, and they're like their own little brand ecosystem on that platform because they're providing such good value. At a more philosophical level, I think if you're looking about the future of branding, your brand can become a business. I obviously it's not my main line of work, but the YouTube content, the stuff that I put out there can become a business if I wanted it to be. If you write on Medium, you can make a couple bucks an article fairly easily. And in my mind, brand is one of the most effective ways of entrepreneurship going forward, because any video I create, anything that is from me, again, you can't replicate that. You can replicate an analysis, you can replicate a code base, you can replicate all these things. In the short term, maybe with deepfakes, whatever it is, you could replicate my face as well. But in the short and medium term, I think your brand is one of the few things that you really have that is a complete differentiator from everyone else. And you can, again, leverage that into whether it's speaking opportunities, whether that's work opportunities, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's solely yours and very powerful.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I think we have time for just one more question for the audience. Ilka comes back with another question saying, I've heard people say that putting in the work to get things you're learning to a shareable form helps solidify the knowledge and skills you're acquiring. Do you also experience this, and how do you stop yourself from staying in this reviewing phase before sharing things?
Yeah, I think for me, that's actually the reason I started putting out content is I was trying to learn data visualization, best practices, and how to do things with Tableau. This is years ago, but I would put content out there, like a video on YouTube. That's actually where I started, explaining the concepts on camera or explaining them in a blog. And for me, that really solidified the information. So I'm hoping I'm answering the right question, but it's definitely what worked for me is teaching helps you retain the information and make sure you actually understand it.
I think another important part of that is feedback. So even if you're putting stuff out there where you don't feel like it's ready, if you're asking a community and you're letting them know that, hey, this is an incomplete work, the amount of benefit you get from what other people are seeing, whether it's errors, whether it's ways that you can improve, is unbelievable. That helps you grow so much faster, because in this field where there's so much ambiguity, you don't know what you don't know. So if someone can come in and say, this is a different way of doing this, it might help you, whatever that might be, even though it's not a completed product, even though it's not at that certain level, you can still get tremendous value from it. So my advice would be put stuff out there, maybe even before you feel it's ready, because the feedback you get on it can help push you to get to that level where it is truly ready by your own standards.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I think that sums up pretty much the time we have for this panel. I cannot thank you both enough for such an amazing contribution. It has been great. And I think I speak for everyone in the audience that, well, they are now just a lot more sure about themselves, and they know just how to put themselves out there and when to put themselves out there, which, as you very well said, Kate, it's kind of like now that they should be doing that and not later.
Yes, absolutely.
So, once again, thank you both so much. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Ken, for joining us. It has been a pleasure hosting you, and we hope to see you both soon in the next editions of DSGO.
Thank you for having us, and remember to check out the Dedicated conference and my interview with Kate on my YouTube if you want more of us, if you're not sick of us yet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great one, Roberto. You're the best. Thank you.